Or is this minor? We listen to the Monks sing Nothing Else Matters by Metallica. Never heard the Monks sing Metallica before. Is that major? Is that minor? And it doesn't make any difference. It could be Aretha Franklin. It could be Aretha Johnson. It could be Johnson Aretha. Doesn't matter. If somebody's making music, they're going to be using these 12 notes. They're going to be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, then the octave. They're going to choose from that. And it's either going to be from this, or this, or they might do this. Listen to this one. The interesting thing about minor is that we get 3 of them. Major scale is major. When we talk about minor, write these down. You have what is called natural minor. You have melodic minor. And you have harmonic minor. What's the difference? Natural minor is this. -3, -6, -7. Melodic minor is simply -3. Harmonic minor, -3, -6, +7. Natural minor comes from the 6th scale degree off the church modes. It's called Aeolian. And if we start on the A, sounds like this. That's natural minor. But then we have what is called melodic minor. Now listen how different this sounds. And melodic minor is almost a major scale. The only difference is that the 3rd note is that half step lower. Mozart uses it a lot. Beethoven uses harmonic minor off the A again. Beethoven uses that all the time. Why? More emotion. More emotion. Okay. Let me give you something that you can hang your hat on.
You're the best.
It's your thing. What do what you want to do?
I want to do it just
Well, this will be interesting.
Yeah, see,
I'm never going to do this acoustic. All right, well, let's try it. What's that?
Hello, I've waited here for you ever long. Tonight, I throw myself into and out of the red. fit in. Out of your head, out of my head I sang. And I wonder, when I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever. If anything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say what she sang.
Now, can you recognize how Dave, and that's Dave Grohl, by the way, if you don't know, he's the leader of a band called the Foo Fighters. He was the drummer in Nirvana. No one has gone under more scrutiny in the last 15, 20 years, maybe, I think, than Dave Grohl. And God bless him, because he hasn't changed. I'm a big fan. But notice on the chorus, the first chord's minor, but when he resolves it to a major. And what's the lyric? And I wonder. Listen to this again carefully, because it's really absolutely wonderful writing.
When I sing along with you, if everything could ever feel this real forever.
That's a major chord.
If anything
That's a
could
minor.
ever be this good again.
Minor.
Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say
Major.
what she sang.
Now. Minor.
I'm gonna shorten the breakdown thing.
And that's just great writing. What's he doing? He's sucking you in. He's bringing you in. And the great songs do that. If every one of you were to tell me your favorite song right now, I could analyze it and explain to you why it's your favorite song, emotionally, and what makes that song unique, what's good about it. And I could do the same thing with all the other stuff that's on the radio and why it's just pure crap. There aren't any great writers anymore. Grohl is one of the few guys. I mean, when you talk about rock and roll music, there isn't any rock and roll in America anymore. I mean, there is, but nobody supports it. And we already, we've already talked about how this class, like all kids your age, you listen to hip-hop music because it's stuffed down your throat. You don't have any choice. And you're afraid to listen to other music because you're afraid your friends might say, oh, God, you listen to that? Why do you listen to that? Now, you're lucky because you're in North Carolina, so you can still listen to country and western if you want. But what they call country and western anymore, I'm sorry, Eric Church is not country and western. Zach Brown is not country and western. And just because you wear a cowboy hat, that doesn't mean you're country and western. Garth Brooks got a lot of money. He's not country and western. Merle Haggard is country and western. That's Johnny Cash, country western. But even the last record, one of the best songs Johnny ever recorded, is a song called "Hurt" from 9 Inch Nails. Trent Reznor wrote that song. It's a great, great song. And Johnny Cash was such a strong artist that he could take anyone's song and make it his own. What we're talking about here is labels. Throw all the labels out. What you need to understand about music is that it comes from these 12 notes. This is it. Now, what you have to understand is that the music that we're listening to right now in class doesn't have the black keys. So that when we go to this piece of music, this is the next one in your textbook. This is the This is Columba Aspect. textbook says about that. To the Catholic Church, she is Saint Hildegard, venerated by a special liturgy on September 17th. To musicians, she is the first great woman composer. 500 years after Gregory I, the first compiler of Gregorian chants, Hildegard composed plain chant melodies in her own highly individual style, to go with poems that she wrote for special services at the convent of Bingen in Western Germany. Under her charge as abbess, she also wrote a famous book describing her religious visions, books on natural science and medicine, even biographies. Columba Aspexit was composed in honor of a now forgotten saint, Saint Maximinus. It belongs to a late medieval plain chant genre called the sequence, a much more elaborate kind of melody than the antiphon, consisting of a series of short tunes sung twice, with some variation, A, B, B, C, C, etc. What you have to understand is that when we talk about women in music, is that, and sorry ladies, in music a long time ago, it's like a lot of things. The women were sort of pushed to the side. There weren't women singing in Mass in the Roman Catholic Church for hundreds of years. They weren't allowed to. Now, as I told you in the first class, I'm only going to tell you the truth. So it is galling for me that you know, anyone being dismissed simply because of who they are for any reason at any time is upsetting to me. So the fact that this woman who is composing this is recognized as the first composer is really a shame. But for her to be recognized, she had to have some friends somewhere, even just to be heard. And it's always like that, you know. We just went through this 2 weeks ago when Aretha Franklin did pass away. Aretha Franklin was more than just a great artist. Aretha Franklin was a true pioneer, because Aretha Franklin was a session player before she was known. And a session player, what I mean by that is that in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, there is a recording studio. It's a very famous recording studio. And you'll often hear back in the day of the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. Well, Aretha Franklin was the piano player in that rhythm section. And she's on a lot of records, uncredited, just like a lot of the musicians. You know, back in the 50s and the 60s and early rock and roll, you had musicians that were on hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of records. In California, they call themselves the Wrecking Crew. In Detroit, they call themselves the Funk Brothers. Funk Brothers were the rhythm section for Berry Gordy's Motown Records, and the Wrecking Crew was basically the rhythm section for all of the California bands, including Jan and Dean and the Beach Boys, Frank Sinatra. A very young Glenn Campbell was in the Wrecking Crew. He was 17 when he first joined the band. Cher was a background singer on those records. A lot of people who later on became well known were in these session bands, and Aretha Franklin was one of them. And one of the things that was interesting about it is that those session groups were pretty much a boys' club. There's a woman by the name of Carol Kay, who was a bass player, who was the Wrecking Crew's #1 call bass player. She got in. And years later, she lived in Boulder, Colorado when I was living there, and I actually had the pleasure of working with her and gigging with her. And she looked like your aunt or someone. I mean, she looked so not like a rock star, you couldn't imagine. But she was a great bass player, man. I mean, she could, you listen to Carol play and it's like, man, she so much doesn't look like how she sounds. You know, I mean, she'd just be just like cooking it, you know? And yet like I said, she looks like your aunt or your grandmother or something. It's like, wait, there's something wrong with this picture. And then she'd just kind of smile, you know. But that's the way it is. And Aretha, the thing about Aretha that was so great is that when Ahmet Ertegun, who was the president of Atlantic Records, finally signed her to a solo deal, Aretha demanded and received total autonomy over her records. In other words, all right, I'll make records for you, but I'm going to make them the way I want. I get, you know, I'm going to produce them. You know, it's like I'm going to know what songs and how the arrangements are going to be. I'm going to have control. And that's what, you know, and that's what made Aretha so special, is that not only did she get that control, she knew what to do with it. You know, when you listen to Chain of Fools or Respect or any of her really well-known records, these are really well-done records. They're really organized. The arrangements are really good. But when you listen to this music, and when you listen to your favorite songs now, I want you to understand that that organization comes from this early music. All right, so let's talk about this early music. So this is the other part of what I wanted to discuss today. All right, first thing, any questions about what we've gone over today? Because it's a little complicated, and I understand that you might not understand it. Do we understand that major has that happy sound? That the minor is more sad, spooky, mysterious, emotionally upset? Yes, we got that? Okay. Now, more importantly, can you hear the difference? It's easy to hear that happy. If the music sounds happy, then there's a really, really good chance, like 99%, that it's major. That it's a major scale and tonality. It's a major sound. Okay? And if it doesn't, especially if the lyrics are depressing, sad, that's going to follow that it's going to be a minor key. That there's going to be minor chords or a minor melody to it. And it's been that way for 1,000 years. And I suspect that it will still be that way. Okay? All right. So now, let's talk about this. Monophonic music. Guess what? Happy birthday. We're talking about music, single melody. When we sing happy birthday, we're all singing the same song, we're all singing the same key, the same rhythm at the same time. Monophonic music. And that music came from chant. That's what chant is. This idea of chant, this Gregorian chant, the plain chant, what your textbook talks about. This idea of just a melody. And when we were listening to at Paradisum, that's a melody. That's monophonic music. Monophy. Mono means single. Single means one. Phony means sound. Single sound. Single melody. We heard Dave Grohl accompanying himself on a guitar. Now we have homophonic music, which is a melody with accompaniment. So now Dave is singing a song, but he's playing chords underneath it.
everything could ever feel this real forever. If anything could ever be this good again. Only thing I'll ever ask of you, gotta promise not to stop when I say when.
Wow, that's great.
Picking off.
Good stuff. But watch this.
Just got done cleaning the bike and spraying it down with some F11. F11 is no joke.
I'm not sure what we would call that. But that, yeah, Josh?
Do you know where that was written? Like what area it was written in?
Sure. Here's what you have to understand. When we first get to homophonic music, what people were doing, and this instrument's perfect, they were putting what we would now call a drone underneath it. So what you heard, I think I can do this real quick. Let me switch instruments here. Let's go to kind of limited by what I have. All right. If I stay in the minor, I'll sound like this. and that's all minor, but notice that I kept that happening. And you have that drone, and when you have that early polyphonic, listen to the drone here that he keeps playing. You hear that? It kept going on. Yeah, is it? Let me change it. It's hard for me to replicate that instrument when I got an iPad here like that. All right. But here's the deal. The church is now organizing its services. And are there any Roman Catholics here? It's interesting. And it's certainly not, again, you have to understand that we're all equal here. But Roman Catholics in this part of the country, pretty much in the minority. Not a whole lot of Roman Catholics. But if you are Roman Catholic, what you would know is that they're pretty much into showbiz. Their services are a big deal. And they are organized. And they got a lot going on. And all the different aspects of the Roman Catholic Mass has music that follows it. And you have what are called ordinary Mass, and then you have proper Mass. Ordinary is like what happens every Sunday. And there are parts of the Roman Catholic Mass that happen every week. And then you have the proper Masses, which are your Requiem Mass, funerals, Christmas, Easter, special services. Those are proper. And there's music and things that happen, procedures that only happen during proper Mass, and depending on which proper Mass it is. And the thing that's interesting, as we find out, as we get into the late Baroque, when we get into the time of Bach, we'll get into when Martin Luther gets really upset, pulls out the paper and the hammer, starts the Protestant Reformation, when he hammers his complaints on the door of the church. Literally. And then the controversy really, you have the whole Protestant Reformation and a lot of controversy. And a lot of that controversy has to do with music. And what that controversy is from is this idea of the music developing. All right, so let me see where I'm at time-wise. Okay, we've got a few more minutes. All right, so going from this, listen to this.